Seth, are you on control?
Green.
We welcome you everybody here this evening to race number 6 of the ASRA 410 Sprint Cars. We're here at the short track, dirt track of Lernerville. We are underway here in the first of our qualifying heats. I'm Seth Cole alongside of Anthony McCrary. And Anthony, as we watch Dakota Kuhn in this 95 machine leading Casey Miller, these cars, they look like they are slipping and sliding around. The one thing you documented when we came on here pre-broadcast is there's no wall out here to save these guys if they mess up.
No wall except on the front stretch. It appears to be here at Lernerville. As you see the wall kind of sticking its way out into the racetrack, that these drivers kind of catch them off guard. But it looks like Miller had a couple of runs at the leader at Kuhn, but could not get anything done. We're going around, and I think this is going to be towards the end of the race. One lap to go, in fact.
We got the wrecking back there, as that was Gary Peck and Brian Beach getting together. Peck's going to teleport his car to pit lane. I believe all the drivers that showed up tonight will be making it into the main event, so DNFing in these heats isn't necessarily going to kill you in terms of making it into the main event race. It will hurt you in terms of track position, as Dakota Kuhn just took the checkered flag to win this first heat, which means I believe he'll be starting pole when we eventually get to the 40-lap race.
He will be starting on pole for that event as he's turning some victory laps around this circuit. This circuit is an interesting one, I have to say. It's I've seen dirt racing with no walls before, but this one is, it's something special whenever you get to watch it. The format for these races goes as follows. We have, I believe, 2 divisions that we're running, the 360s and the 410s, if memory serves me correctly. Heat number 1 had just happened. Heat number 2 is about ready to start. We have 4 heats for these drivers, 6 drivers per heat. 5 drivers will be in this one, but the maximum is 6 drivers. The top 3 move on to the feature. The rest have to battle, and I believe it's a consolation race, and then a certain amount of drivers will get in on the consolation race. As these drivers get ready to pull off for heat number 2, as heat number 1 proved to be something pretty spectacular. These are quick shootout races, don't take very long at all, and man, when these guys are rocketing around this track, it's almost scary watching them get up on the high line, getting their wheels so close to the outside where if you dump one off, it's all over. Your race could end just like that, and tonight it's going to be a battle of the track more or less than it is with the drivers.
Terry Bauman, John Bragman, Ronald Piles, Eric Keller, and Clifford Driscoll going to be the drivers in this heat. And to your point, when we were watching these drivers in practice, that preferred line is, scarily enough, that top line. So as you said, you overstep that just the least little bit. There's nothing out there that's going to save you. That sprint car is going to be all torn up.
Indeed, it will. Nothing to really stop your incident, I should say, is we're going to set them up to go green for heat number 2. I should also mention that these are 6-lap heats. I don't think I stated that they are 6-lap heats, but the pace truck will peel off. And we're going to set them underway for heat number 2. It's going to be Bauman and Bragman alongside of each other. Green flag is out. A bit of a staggered start from Bauman, but he gets going away from everyone. Bragman, whoa, Bauman actually pulled it in there just a little bit.
Oh, we got a car almost off course there. Terry Ballman, I think, is straddling the edge there. He got into, I think that was Ronald Piles in the 68 on the back straightaway.
Yep, they got a little bit of contact there. The battle for the lead between Keller and Bragman at the moment is heating up, and yeah, the contact is so easy to make at this racetrack just because of how close you are. The track is extremely short, really tight turns. It's sliding it in there. It goes Keller almost to the wheel of Bragman. These top three are in a good spot, though. If they can finish where they're running out of the racetrack, they will advance.
Look at Clifford Driscoll there in the third position. He was able to close up about 4 car lengths now on the back row of these two. Look at the slide job there. Oh, Keller almost pulled it off.
Almost, not quite to the inside again. Can he get the power down? Just on the outside line, you get so much more power than on the inside. You can rocket it in, though, and if you can make the power stick, you might make it work, but Keller's pushing the issue of how high you can run on that line. Is running the backstretch, going into the final 2 turns. Who's it going to be? 1 lap to go.
Oh, Keller almost may have gotten the wall there off of turn 4. Got 2 more corners to attempt to get to the inside of John Bragman, but I don't think he's close enough. The battle may be for second coming to this checkered.
Checkered flag in the air. Bragman gets the win, but it's a side-by-side battle for second. It will be Keller besting Driscoll in a fantastic run to the line, and that could have been a little bit sketchy for a couple of these drivers, getting awful close, testing the waters to see where they could stick their cars, but man, they got some really close racing going on there.
It's going to be interesting to watch these drivers here as well, because we know that right now all they're doing is battling for track position. I think currently, with the number of drivers that we have in the field, all of them may end up making it into the main event. But of course, when we get to that main event race, there are no second chances. There is no going back if your car is all torn up. So the aggressive racing we're seeing right now to be able to qualify their way in, I'm not sure we're going to be seeing that, at least in the early stages of our main event race, but I could be wrong.
You never know. The last one that I did with these guys, it was nonstop action top to bottom, and it didn't really, there wasn't a level of, if anything, they were more aggressive in the main event because you have to push knowing that this is the last chance you have, so there is no second chance. The catch to that is, yeah, you might end up not being able to have anything happen for you, but if you can get a good enough run, then why not throw it in, see what happens. And that's some of the mentality that these drivers go into a final race, but we got a long way to go before we get to that event, as we got 1 more heat after this one, so 2 heats plus the B main and then the main race of tonight's event.
Brian Hogue will start on point for this one alongside of Matt Miller. Rick Gibson, Michael Massey, and Scott Monksgaard are going to be the top 5 here, the 5 drivers in this heat, and Massey is actually, up to this point, the highest driver that we have in the standings in the heats that we've seen so far. Currently 6th in the points coming into this one, a total of 60 points out of the points lead.
And he wants to have a good run tonight if he wants to extend and get better in the points as we go to green. Looks like Hogue's going to have a good run into turn number 1 and 2, but back here you got Miller and Gibson battling side by side. That is for the second place position, I should say. And Gibson's looks like he's going to get the advantage, tries to run down Hogue for the lead. You
got to wonder what these drivers are dealing with. All of these heats. Oh, contact.
No, there's more contact.
Oh, there goes Brian Hogue way up the track. I think he just went off the course. He did. Michael Massey further back was off course in the back straightaway. Who knows where he is as he's off our camera shot. He actually went all the way out to that orange plastic fencing way outside of the track.
And he has opted to tow it to pit road, so he is done for the heat race. We'll have to see with this battle for seconds brewing between Miller and Muscard. Muscard finds himself in a transfer spot now. He was in last place before coming into this the closing stages of the race, and now finds himself in a transfer, which is something that he's going to be breathing a little bit easier now. We know that he doesn't have to race in that B main to get into the main race, as Miller spins it out of turn 2.
No contact, just lost it off the corner. That's going to drop him all the way back to the 4th position, as Rick Gibson just received the white flag here for this heat, holds almost 2 seconds between himself and Scott Monksgaard. And we got to remember that these drivers, as I was saying, which heat they're in, where they start in those heats, all luck of the draw, and all these drivers in the 2nd, 3rd, 4th heat, they're running on track that's already been run on, already been rubbered in somewhat, so the conditions are different depending on which heat you're in. But Rick Gibson looks like he'll be starting third for the main event, winning this third heat.
Indeed, he will be doing that. The track, as you said, will get a little bit more dry over time, and it's not going to matter too much between these heat races because I believe that they have the option where they can lay some water down on the racetrack and get that track back to the way it was. But when we get to our main event races, once the track starts to get dry and it gets more slick, then all that goes out the window, and you're going to have to figure out how you're going to make your car stick where you normally could do earlier in the race with the amount of grip that you had this early on.
Yeah, these drivers only had about 10 minutes of practice before they started off these heats. They will have 5 minutes, as you alluded to, between these heats and the main event, where the track will get watered up again. The grip will come back. The different lines will be available when we go green for the 40 lapper. You got to wonder, how much, with the limited amount of practice that they were able to get in here prior to these heats, what are some of the things they're going to be looking for here when they get to that 5 minute warm up in terms of preparing for the main event?
It goes from being these little tiny sprint races to a longer race, a 40 lap race, and that extra 5 minutes is going to be crucial for you. You can maybe figure out, you've run this many laps, maybe get back on the track for a little bit longer, figure out where your car is good, where I can attack, where I can pass. This is a short lap, one of the shorter laps that I've actually been a part of broadcasting any league for that matter. So watching these guys fly by, there's not a whole lot of time for you to be able to make up spots in this 6 lap race. I mean, we've seen these 6 lap races go by in an instant. A 40 lap race is going to take, just as short. It's going to seem like a lot of laps, but it's really not that much time. So you got to think, where can you make these passes? Where can I attack? What can I do in order to get a better lap time? And I think that time between these races and the main event is going to be extra crucial.
Adam Huggins will line up pole for this heat alongside of Martin Karch. We'll get to him in just a moment as far as his position in the standings. Timothy DeSchwart and Brian Ordo are the other two drivers in the field. Calvin Herring was supposed to be rolling off fifth, but he apparently missed the grid, so he will be starting rear of the field if he is going to be partaking in the main event. Martin Karch comes into this race fifth in the point standings, a total of 49 points out of the points lead.
Yeah, that's a long way back when you consider just how much points you get divvied up. And we're betting the green racing, and it looks like the Karch is going to actually try to get the lead on the outside line. Way up on the outside. He's actually going to take the lead now. Is Karch against Huggins, and back here you got DeSwart and Orto battling it out for the third place position. These drivers, you were wondering about aggression level. It seems that when you stick a lot of cars on this racetrack, then the aggression level is going to go way up as these drivers, even in the heats, are using up their stuff. And man, they're just sliding around. The way that they slide into these turns is something to watch.
Schwartz trying to reel in Adam Huggins. Martin Karch has gotten the race lead, and he's still up there on the razor's edge. I think that's what I'm going to be calling it here today because, man, it just kind of makes my heart stop when I see him go way up on that outer groove because there is absolutely no room for error.
You make a mistake, and it's all over. The 11 drives it in deep. Speaking of making moves, Emma said that's the 71, and he makes contact with Ordo. DeSwart makes contact with Ordo, and it looks like that they're going to keep battling. This is a transfer spot, so this is a crucial spot for these drivers. None of them wants to give it up. Who's going to get the advantage? It looks like it's going to be DeSwart on the outside, trying to make something work, not quite able to do it.
See if he can try and cross over Brian or make that, DeSwart right here as Martin Karch just lost the race lead to Adam Huggins. Don't know what happened to him. But all of a sudden, he just dropped out of a fourth place starting spot because Huggins got around him, drives it in deep, does Karch off the corner, almost hit Huggins, and did he get third at the line? I think he did, barely. Ooh. But that almost cost him.
That could have been going to the consolation race and having to race your way back into the main event. That was intense. That just shows you how quick the dynamic of a race can change, and man, almost he was in the lead of the race and then lost the lead, almost lost out of the third place position. He does transfer just barely, as you said.
Here's the consolation race here for these drivers, and some names that jump out to me here. Cody Olson's going to start on point for this one. He's the points leader coming into this race. Kevin Fry is starting shotgun in this grid. He is third in the points, only 10 points out. Second in the standings, it looks like, is not here tonight, Jason Minette, and he was only 5 points back from Olson for the points lead.
Yeah, and that this points battle continues to roll through these races. And, for Olson, he's looking to extend his points lead. He's had a good season so far, just trying to capitalize on a good starting position here tonight. And if he can get a good enough finish tonight, then, he might even run away with this points lead going into the next few races.
We're going to have Cody Olson, Terry Baum in the front row for this consolation heat. Matt Miller, Timothy DeSchwart in row 2. Gary Peck and Ronald Piles row 3. And then Michael Massey and Kevin Fry in row 4. Again, as we saw back, I think it was in the third heat, Calvin Herring did not make the grid in that one. He did not make the grid in this one. So it looks like Calvin Herring may not even be racing in tonight's event. I forgot what you told me about how many drivers are transferring in here through this consolation race.
So the way this race works, it's a 15-lap shootout between these 8 drivers on the racetrack here. And at the end of the 15 laps, the top 8 will transfer, meaning everyone in this race will transfer, if that is to be true. So really nothing to lose for these drivers. It's just one extra race they have to do. But with the added benefit of these drivers get more practice than our main event drivers will, as it is like the title says, a consolation race, although you get the added benefit of transferring in. Although if there was a bigger field tonight, it would matter quite a bit.
Yeah, certainly would. I would assume that this is going to be the lining up from 17th on back through 24th in our starting lineup, depending on where these drivers finish in this consolation race, as the green flag is in the air, and it's the most cars we've had on track at one time here in race conditions.
And they're showing exactly just how small this track is when you put a lot of cars on them, as they went 3 wide for a moment, almost got into each other, they're getting into each other in turn 3 and 4.
Oh!
As they're ping-balling off each other. The 98 gets a little bit loose, and now the 46 goes down into the grass, tries to make a pass work. I'm sorry, that's the 45, and there's cars off the track on the backstretch. That's Terry Ballman off the track.
He manages to get it back on the course, though, as contact again. This is for the 4th position between Matt Miller and the 98, and Ronald Piles in the 68. Whoa, car way off there. I believe that might have been Kevin Fry in the 21, but he gathers it back up.
He went off the track just slightly going down the back, but he was able to pull it back onto the racetrack. Nothing wrong with that car, it seems, at the moment, although he's driving it in extremely deep into turn 1, and he's actually getting off into the grass. There's something not quite right with that car, something that doesn't feel right with him, it seems, the way he's driving it at the moment. But Olson continues to lead the race, a commanding lead over Gary Peck, who's got about a half a second gap back to DeSwart. They settled themselves out pretty good, but DeSwart got the piece of the wall, so it's not all cut and dry for the end of this race.
Took a lot of chaos there in the first 2 or 3 laps for them finally to settle themselves out here. About 0.7 of a second increments from 2nd back to 3rd, back to 4th, back to 5th. The closest battle right now is actually going on for the 7th position. That is between Kevin Fry and Terry Ballman, but there's half a second separating those drivers. So more than likely, it looks like these drivers all settling in right now, just logging some laps, I would assume, here, heading for that checkered flag. As you alluded to, all of them going to be making it into the main event.
And no one's got anything to lose in this race and everything to gain. Extra time on track, extra practice for the main event. This race is going by very quickly for these drivers. We're already on lap 9 of 15, so this race is coming to a close.
Oh, we got a spinner. Matt Miller has gone off on the back straightaway, trying to bring it back onto the course.
And he almost went down into the pit road. That will not happen. He's gotten back onto the track in turn 4, trying to get it going in the right direction. Staying off the racing line is the 98, but he's got it going back the right way, right in front of the 40 of Terry Ballman, though.
And that's the race leader going around the both of them on the outside.
And the chaos is ensuing here, and this is what happens when you throw a lot of cars in such a short track, which leads me to believe that we're going to have a pretty chaotic main event race. It's a 30-lap race for these 360 drivers, and given the fact that we've seen this much chaos with 8, you can imagine what's going to happen when we ramp it up to over 15.
Yeah, Absolutely. As I'm not certain, we're going to have to wait and find out if indeed they actually are going to be running the main event where the caution laps will actually not count. I remember that we did an ASRA race last week, I believe it was, and one of the events, the caution laps did count. One of the events, they didn't count. So we'll have to see on which side of the spectrum it is for this one. As there was a battle for third place going on between Timothy DeSchwart and Ronald Piles. They've settled that out now as they have to deal with some traffic up ahead. Whoa, DeSchwart getting out of shape there off of 4, though, as he's trying to get around the outside of Matt Miller.
And he will do so, gets around Miller, but that's going to bring Piles back into the rear end of the 69 as they're trying to get around the slower traffic. Oh, there's a little bit of a bobble from DeSchwart. That's going to bring Piles right back up to him, but the race, I believe, is over.
It is, so DeSchwart will get third behind Gary Peck and consolation heat winner Cody Olson. So pretty much the finishing results that you see here with these top 8 is where they will be starting as far as the 17th through 24th position in the main event, as these drivers now are going to get ready to take to the track for a little bit of a warm-up session. I thought it was 5 minutes, actually 2 minutes in length for these drivers to get adapted back to this racetrack, as we will have, it looks like 23 drivers that I believe will actually be making this start, unless Calvin Herring actually does get back in. So we'll be back here for the coverage of the main event in just a moment as these drivers take to the track for warm-up. We're going to step aside for a commercial break, and then we'll be back here to bring you the main event feature here tonight at Lernerville Speedway.
Since the VFW was founded, their mission was really to look out for the veterans community, to make sure that our nation upholds its promise to really care for the service member, the veteran, and his or her family. There are several ways that the VFW fights for veterans today. The top services include disability claims assistance, advocacy on Capitol Hill and with the Department of Veterans Affairs. We also offer scholarship opportunities, and then also volunteerism. For me personally, when I came back from Iraq, my life experience was drastically different from those around me, and the Veterans of Foreign Wars really spoke to me. The reason I would encourage veterans who have served overseas today to join the VFW is because this is your organization. The VFW is for veterans. Every generation, a new generation of leaders steps up in the Veterans of Foreign Wars and fights for the veterans community.
The Veterans of Foreign Wars. No one does more for veterans. For more information on the VFW, go to ahctv.com/sacrifice.
Most everyone involved in sim racing always wants that edge or even make the experience a little bit better, or in this case, a little bit more in depth. Enter iRacing iFlag. iFlag is a simulation signal box with software designed by Peter Vostro. When you are behind the wheel in iRacing, your eyes are looking down the track or maybe even in the rear or side view mirrors. You may not notice or even hear when the caution comes out, when your car is damaged, or if you get black flagged, or even notice the car beside you. Yes, iFlag will point out the signs and tell you where that car is. It just makes iRacing more real and can help you become a better driver. We also offer iRacing iFlag Digital Pit Box. This small box is a great addition to any sim rig, with only 3.5 inches wide.
And it's now main event time here at Lernerville. 30 laps of racing. Looks like we have 19 drivers that are going to take the green flag, as trouble for the driver that was going to roll off from the pole position. Dakota Kuhn experienced some internet problems. I've even noticed that here in TeamSpeak, where we're broadcasting from, he actually fell out of TeamSpeak. So a tough break there for a driver that looked like he could very well be the strongest car of the night.
He had some pace throughout his heat race, and he did. He looked like he might have been a favorite for tonight's main event for the 360s, but will not be in the running. So it's going to open the door for Bragman, Gibson, and Huggins, who were fastest in their respective heats. We'll have to see what they can do to capitalize tonight.
Going to be interesting to see how cautions fall here as well, because, yeah, we had a lot of incidents in those specific heats as well as the consolation heat, but really not a whole lot of wrecking due to contact. Just drivers, making some mistakes, going off course or spinning around. So we'll have to see how the race officials here tonight are going to have these cautions fall in this 30-lapper. But man, it's the sprints having a sprint, because as you said, it doesn't take them long to turn 30 circuits here at Lernerville.
Not at all. 15 to 14 or 14 to 15 second lap times is going to be the norm for tonight. Rick Gibson finds himself on provisional pole as we start the race for the main events in the 360s, and we are green here at Lernerville, and it looks like that Gibson's going to drive it in deep, but look on the outside line, that's Bregman 3 wide for the lead, and everyone gets through turn 1 okay.
That was Casey Miller looking to the inside 3 wide, had his tires down in the grass going into turn 1, as look at these drivers all fanned out through the field, double wide, 3 wide, up here for the lead again, 3 wide.
And these drivers are battling like it's the last lap, but you have to do that. These laps are so short that, like we mentioned, it could be the last lap before you know it, as they're still racing each other very cleanly. Almost 3 wide again going for the lead, but you look back here fanning around, there's 3 and 4 wide action throughout the entire racetrack, and so far they're keeping it good, but Bregman's trying to get away, not able to do it so far. The outside line gets you a run down the front and back straightaway. On the inside line, they're trying to make that work. Miller almost tried to make the inside line work, but actually slid up the racetrack. Now it's going to be in the clutches of Adam Huggins.
That was Brian Ordo we saw getting out of shape after some contact with Martin Karch. Looks like we have had a driver have an issue here early on. Matt Miller in the 98 has teleported his car back to pit road. The car we're focused on right now is Cody Olson, and he is flying. He started this main event from the 13th position. He has just swung around for the 6th spot. In a matter of 6 laps, he's knocking on the door of the top 5.
Made it into this race via the consolation race. All these drivers that were in the consolation race are here in this race, so they're looking to prove what they can do here tonight. Is, again, you said Olson on a tear, actually going to go for Huggins now for the 5th place position. He's making that outside line work to his benefit. He's got the speed. Can he get the move done? Not a whole lot of chances to pass at this racetrack either. It's pretty much a 1 passing zone track as Huggins gets a little bit loose into the wall. This is going to open the door for Olson to the inside. What can he do?
He gets it down into the grass is what he does. As Huggins now gets down into Martin Karch there off of turn 2. They keep it together though, as it's 4 cars under a blanket at the front. John Bregman now leads. Rick Gibson in 2nd, Casey Miller in 3rd, and Clifford Driscoll currently in the 4th position.
Looks like that Miller got a little bit of a checkup. Now here comes Driscoll trying to make that pass for the 3rd position on Miller. He's going to try the inside line, but there's just not enough speed down there. You're going to have to send it in and try to hope it sticks, and so far not being able to do it. They're running right along the ragged end of this racetrack, and as you pointed out earlier, it is nerve-wracking to watch these drivers so close to the outside of the racetrack.
And you talked about the fact it's so difficult to make passes here. I guarantee you that these cars are not built to not make contact with another car. These cars are meant for beating and banging, and I bet you if we come down to the closing stages and someone is within striking distance of the race leader, they will be more than willing to use that front bumper.
For sure, and as we see, the 40 is actually going to get passed. That's Terry Bauman, who's had problems throughout the race. I believe he was one of the ones that made contact with Matt Miller earlier in the race. He's just trying to survive this race at this point in time. It's something they might have gotten locked loose, and these cars are so dependent on the suspension and how it can handle the dirt and have to slide it in that if you get any bit of suspension damage, it's basically your race over as Miller tries to drive it in way deep into turn 3 and 4, setting up a move. He's going to make contact, and he saves it, does Gibson.
And now we got behind them Clifford Driscoll and Cody Olson. They're battling side by side for the 4th position. Driscoll gets the run off of 2. He's now going to challenge for the 3rd spot on Gibson and Miller. And you got Olson hanging back there as well. Now Olson's been able to work his way up to 5th. The driver that was trying to reel him in, I think, just ran into some trouble. Kevin Fry in the 21. He's had a problem in turn 3 and has dropped all the way back to 17th now.
Yeah,
Another driver's had a problem. Gary Peck has fallen back in the 88. He's off track on the back straightaway.
I must have overdrove turn 1. It looks like someone's trying to get back onto the racetrack in the 88. He has made his way back onto the racing surface, although he has lost a ton of spots now back in the 17th spot overall. And John Bregman, I should say, is about ready to catch up to him. That is your leader of the race. He's actually gotten away from Gibson, which is good news to him because now he can just run his race the way he wants to. Driscoll is still under file from Olson that has made his way up into the 4th place position. There was contact going into turn 1 between the two of them. They keep it going the right way, though.
With everything we've seen here, I'm surprised we've gone 18 laps and have not seen a caution flag. We are now at 12 laps to go here in the main event. John Bragman coming into this race 11th in the points. He's over 100 points back from the points lead, so I'm not really sure with only 4 races after tonight remaining in the season if he can make a run for the championship, but certainly looking to see if he can win this race as he's actually just lost the race lead. Here comes Rick Gibson back around the outside. He's going to take the race lead back, the provisional pole sitter.
And that is going to be big for him as he found himself in a really cool spot of being the pole sitter after the original pole sitter fell out of the race. Oh, there was some contact on the wall. He saw the car bounce up in the air just a little bit. He runs right up against the wall, and that is what causes these open-wheeled cars. If you see it in a lot of series, he'll get right there. But check out what Olson is doing right now. He's actually caught up to the back end of Bragman. He's going to try and go for the second place position. He has gotten around Driscoll, made quick work of him. Now he's trying to force the issue around the outside on the back straightaway going into 3, 2 through 4. Can he make the move? Does he get squeezed into the wall? Oh, that was so close between Bragman and Olson.
But he does clear for the second spot, and before he caught up to Bragman, Cody Olson was running the fastest laps on the racetrack. Now Gibson, just a little tick quicker than the 6. You got to think it might be coming down between these two. 7 laps for Cody Olson to cut down 0.8 of a second between himself and the race leader in the 38.
The way he's been running, he might be able to do it. He's got enough time. He's got the pace. Gibson is going to encounter some lap traffic here in a minute.
Oh, wow, a lot of traffic.
They're running 3 wide in front of him. This is not what Gibson wants to see. As Olson's going to come riling in. We got to take an eye on Gibson, make sure he gets through okay, but the battle for the lead is going to be heating up very shortly.
That's Brian Hogue just up ahead. Brian Ordo as well as there's contact. I think that was Kevin Fry. Oh, my goodness.
And the leader's the leader. Gibson goes off the racetrack. Olson takes the lead.
And now Olson's going to have to deal with the traffic up ahead of him. That's Kevin Fry who's trying to battle for the points lead. He's going to give way on the inside line to the 6. Up ahead of them, you've got the 45 of Michael Massey. Oh, there was some contact there. Kevin Fry realizes this is the guy he's battling for the championship.
How much does he race him? Does he use the car? Yes, he does. He's going to try and get him out of line, but he can't do it just yet. He's racing like he's racing for the lead. This is the leader trying to get around lap traffic we're watching, not for position. This is incredible.
And Olson is boxed in right now. He's got a car in front of him, a car to his inside. Oh, gracious. I'm not sure who that was. It might have been the 18 of Brian Beach that almost got up into him there. And now Fry drives him up towards the outside line there off of turn 2. Olson may be clear of this traffic, but there's still about 3 or 4 cars ahead of him. But he does see the white flag, so maybe he'll be okay.
White flag in the air, 1 lap to go, about a half a lap now as he comes around the back straightaway, and this is something that he's wanted to see. Cody Olson goes from the middle of the pack all the way to the lead, takes the lead, and never looked back. Cody Olson wins the 360 main event tonight.
What an incredible drive. It's only his 2nd win of the season, but as you said, 13th to 1st in 30 laps, and you've got to feel for Rick Gibson, who looked like he was going to, if not win, at least be a contender. Running off course there in turn 2. That 38 car will be finishing back in the 15th position, but it'll be Olson with the win, Bragman in 2nd, and Clifford Driscoll will be bringing it home in 3rd.
What a race. Top to bottom, non-stop action. Clean race as well. And these drivers gave each other plenty of room throughout the entire race, and they were able to make it around okay. Man, you look at that window, look at that top 3, top 4 you've got on your screen right now. Those were the best drivers tonight. And again, Cody Olson going all the way from 13th to 1st. It proves that you've got enough time to do it. So these 410 drivers might be looking at this saying, hey, I don't have to particularly do well if I want to win this race in the heats. I can get up to the front because Olson just proved that, you can put your car anywhere you want to.
Well, as we're looking here at the finisher results, I agree with you on just about all those points except one, based on the fact that these drivers running here in the 360s will be climbing into their 410 sprints, which have a lot more speed, a lot more power. We saw what happened when the race leaders caught up to the tail end of the field, turning faster lap times with more powerful race cars in just a few moments in those 410s. They're probably going to be catching the tail end of the field even quicker there.
Oh, no kidding. And the fact that it's also an open setup division, this 360 division is a fixed setup, I believe. And so the 410s, these drivers are going to make sure that they have the most advantage they can going into that race, as they can set the car up to their liking, which means that we're going to see some drivers doing well on the outside. We're going to see some drivers doing well on the inside, and we're going to see these cars all over the place. I can guarantee you it's going to be nonstop action.
Well, let's see if we can find out what it was like from the driver's perspective, because obviously from our perspective, if you couldn't hear, I think our voices hit some octaves we weren't expecting here tonight just based on the action, and we'll see what the first person view of a driver was with the action we saw here tonight. And let's kick things off with our third place finisher, Clifford Driscoll.
User was moved to your channel.
Hey Clifford, it's Anthony and Seth up here in the Flatout Racing Network studios. You got us?
I do, guys. How's it going?
Well, man, I mean, we saw a 30-lap dash there, incredibly enough with no cautions, even though there was beating and banging, slipping and sliding, absolute pandemonium all the way around this dirt track. You bring it home in the third position, but what kind of an adventure did you have to go through to get to that point?
Man, I tell you what, it slicked off a ton right there. I kind of fell behind him on wing adjustments, and I saw Olson coming, and he was in a big hurry, got into me going into one, which, I mean, I was holding him up. He probably should have moved me a little sooner there. But yeah, it was so slick. I just kept falling behind on the adjustment with the wing. It was a mess out there.
Man, that was incredible to watch this race, and the fact that this track is so fast, the laps go by so quickly. We saw 3 and 4 wide racing throughout the entire pack. Was there ever a moment where you were just hoping that the car would stay stuck to the racetrack? You were fast all night long, no question about it. But seeing that some of these drivers got loose trying to get up and trying to make passes going off the track, is there no walls throughout the majority of this track? How ragged edge was it throughout the entire race?
Well, at the beginning, when there was a little more traction to work with, I tried to make a bunch of the moves early. I knew there was something to lean on up there, but like I was saying, it slicked off so much at the end there. It was really just trying not to step over. I was doing more driving not to go over the edge than I was to try to make up time. So, I mean, it got hairy towards the end, but when they slick off like that, it's a lot of fun.
Well, I mean, we're going to be seeing you guys just momentarily climbing into those 410 cars. And, I mean, you know, obviously a great run here in these 360s. It'll be interesting to see what you do with more power. We're going to now let you do some shout-outs here and then let you be able to climb into that car to be able to get some practice in before your main event for that one.
Oh, of course. I got to thank everybody over at 3D, all of our sponsors, iRacing, iFlag, Ken Skims Custom iRacing Paints, JP Home Inspections, Cedar Creek Beef Jerky, Westside Signs, One Shot Scrap Recycling, Short Speed Shop. Without those guys, we wouldn't be able to do what we do, either here in the sprint cars or over in the late model stuff. So appreciate every one of those guys.
Well, that's Clifford Driscoll. He brings it home third place here tonight for the 360s. Once again, congrats on a great run, and we look forward to seeing what you're going to do later on here this evening in the 410 race.
Appreciate it, guys. Have a good one.
User was moved out of your channel.
And let's see if we can get our second place finisher, John Bragman.
User was moved to your channel.
Hey, John, it's Anthony and Seth up here in the Flatout Racing Network studios. You got us?
Yeah, I got you.
Man, 30 laps of wild racing here tonight. We saw you out in front for a good portion of the early stages of this race. Some great battling between you and the 38. But then we saw at the end of this race, it kind of seemed to come down to the ability to maneuver through traffic at the tail end of the field. How difficult was it, just based on the fact we saw that it seemed like Lernerville tonight, at least with the 360 cars, was a run groove racetrack?
Yeah, it's pretty much one groove for the most part of the beginning. At the end, lap traffic came into big play, and it was just hard. You had to move around and find out where you could get past lap traffic quicker.
This track was intense for all these drivers. It's one of the shorter tracks that I've seen any car race at. And given the fact that there are no walls for most of the race, it really adds another sense of danger. Going off track just a little bit will send your car completely spinning. The leader at the time actually had a problem happen where he went off track. How ragged edge were you guys running tonight, knowing that if you made a mistake like that, then it was your race over? But how aggressive were you running throughout the entire race?
I tried to play pretty conservative, didn't play with the top too much just so I didn't make that mistake. A couple guys made the mistake, and I was able to capitalize back on it. So I just tried to stay away from the cushion and get it to work.
Well, John, obviously, you know, great run here tonight in the 360 limited sprints, but you guys are just moments away from climbing into those 410s as well. A lot more power, a lot more speed. It'll be interesting to see how you attack this dirt track in those cars. But we're going to now turn the microphone over and let's do some shout-outs.
I'd like to give a shout out to Countryside Stove and Chimney, Mike Massey putting on a great show, and our sponsors for tonight. And that's about it.
That's John Bragman. He finishes second place here for the 360s. We look forward to seeing what he can do in just mere moments when we take back here to Lernerville in the 410s. Hopefully we'll talk to you then, John.
All right, hope to see you guys then.
User was moved out of your
And
channel.
let's go down to Victory Lane and get Cody Olson.
User was moved to your channel.
Hey, Cody, it's Anthony and Seth up here in the Flatout Racing Network studios. You got us?
Yes, sir.
Well, man, I think the one question I've got to ask you, we saw it pretty much here tonight in this main event at Lernerville, even in the heat races. This track is a one-groove racetrack. Everybody wants to run the top. You ran a groove maybe higher than the top. You were right on the razor's edge, had to start 13th, worked your way up to the win in 30 laps of time. How in the world were you able to pull that off?
Well, I'm kind of when the track slicks off, it kind of goes in my favor. That's kind of my style of racing, is being on these slicker tracks. But yeah, this track definitely goes one groove and it's around the top the whole entire time, unfortunately. But a lot of that actually has to do with being on a fixed setup, because we race a fixed setup, so we're all on the same thing, so we're all on the same gear, everything. If it were open setup, you could definitely do a gear change, run to the bottom, and it would definitely open some things up. But unfortunately, those were the tools that were given to us, and you gotta be the best driver out there, and not just with the best car. So, and we did that tonight.
You definitely proved that you were the best out of these 360 drivers tonight. That was one heck of a run, coming up through 13th all the way to win the race. Going into the 410 race, I believe you're running in that series as well. What are you looking forward in that race? Do you think you can replicate what you did in this race? And just going into it, what's your mindset?
I'm kind of hoping to carry this energy over to the next race. I think I have a little bigger cushion in points than that series, but that one's a little easier because I can set the car up to drive, more to my style and my liking. So it definitely opens up some more doors for me. But I'm really hoping that I can replicate what happened tonight. But I think if old Rick Gibson didn't get the short end of the stick on that slider, I think we might be having a different conversation tonight, though.
Well, nonetheless, though, Cody, a great run for you tonight. Your second win here in this series. Obviously, going to gain you some points as well. Possibly take the points lead. I think it's going to be close between yourself and Driscoll, just based on the both of you finishing up in the podium. We'll have to wait and see about that next week. But anybody that you would like to shout out here tonight?
Yeah, my setup guy, Jason, he puts a lot of time into this, helping me with setups and driving techniques and picking the right lines and stuff. And then all the guys at American Dirt Motorsports, then all of our sponsors, Dirtco Media House, 34 Raceway, WFO Race Engines, Toro Media, and then our painter, Kyle over at Ram Designs. I know there's a handful more that I'm missing, but yeah, thanks for having me, guys. Definitely you guys for putting all this stuff on. I know it's a lot of work.
Well, that's Cody Olson. He picks up the win here in the 360s, looks for the sweep here tonight at Lernerville, as he'll be moments away from climbing into his 410 sprint car. Congrats on a great run here in this one, Cody, and we look forward to seeing if we get to talk to you again here in Victory Lane in just a few moments.
Yeah, thank you, gentlemen. Thanks for having me.
And so as that's going to close out the 360s, I mean, Anthony, you brought up the question to our second place finisher, John Bragman, of, what to expect when we get to the 410s. I mean, just based on what we're seeing here, what are you expecting just from the third person standpoint?
From my standpoint, and from what we've asked a couple of these guys here tonight, is that when you go from a fixed setup to an open setup, then all of a sudden the entire complex of the race changes, and now we're going to see some drivers maybe try to use that inside line of their advantage. So they couldn't do it tonight because they couldn't get the power down. But now if they can get shorter gearing, get the power down quicker, have a better run off the corner, then they could open up that inside line. Another thing is that these cars are much more powerful. These lap times could go a lot quicker, but that in turn means that you will have to drive a little bit better if you want to get through these turns okay without going off track. As the fact that this track is still got no walls is a little bit, mind-boggling in the sense that you need to be on focus all the time in order to not have an off track, as we saw a few drivers have tonight.
And, obviously as well, with the lower power of these 360 cars, as well as I do, the slower the car is going, the easier it is to gather it back up when it's maybe going into a spin. With these drivers going into the 410s that are going to be carrying a lot more higher speeds, not so certain that we're not going to see a caution in this one. If someone makes contact with somebody else, it's going to be a little bit more difficult to be able to save that race car.
Oh yeah, for sure. It's going to be wild, fantastic race going into the 410s. I'm looking forward to it. Seth, what are you looking forward to in the 410s?
Well, you brought up the fact about that inside line possibly being viable. The thing I'm actually looking forward to is seeing if we're going to be able to see something like we just saw replicated, where a driver that was towards the back of the pack, midway portion of the field, is going to be able to work his way up through the field, because I have a feeling now with the fact that everybody's going to be able to set up their cars to their liking. You said the 360s is fixed. The 410 is open setup. You can adjust the car exactly the way you want it to handle to your personal preferences. I have a feeling that in this one, the passing may not take place quite as often and as frequent as we saw here in this previous race. Going to be a lot more competitive in trying to get a spot maybe from 6th up to 5th, from 5th up to 4th, and obviously for that race lead and that race win. So I think that now this puts it more into the hands of the drivers rather than the drivers having to adapt. And I think it's going to make it a lot more competitive and a lot more difficult, I think, for drivers that do qualify midway to the rear of the field to work their way up to the front, like we saw Olson be able to do just moments ago.
Indeed, though. So, and I cannot wait for this 410 event. If you like the action in the 360s and stick around for the 410s, some of the same drivers, some new drivers will be in the 410s that we didn't see in the 360s. It's going to be a lot of the same, except much, much, much more intense. As they, I believe, will also have a 30-lap main event. As we will go through the same format for those, it will be a four race heat events, and then a consolation race, and then a main event race. But Seth, we got to get over there.
Yes, we do. So we're going to take a quick intermission. We will be back momentarily to cover the heat races, the qualifying races for the upcoming main event for the ASRA 410 sprint cars. Don't go anywhere. Coverage here at Lernerville on Flatout Racing Network continues in just a moment. And it's time to go racing once again here now under the lights at the Lernerville Speedway, as this is race number 6 of Monday Night Lights for the 410 sprint cars. We kick things off here with the qualifying heats. Looks like 18 drivers going to be taking part in tonight's main event, as we're getting ready here for the first heat race, which is going to have Gary Peck alongside of Kevin Fry, Dakota Kuhn, Brian Hogue, and Casey Miller in this heat. I'm Seth Cole alongside of Anthony McCrory. Anthony, we came off the heels of the 360 sprint race not too long ago. These drivers getting ready to go out here in the 410 sprints. You had the opportunity to observe these drivers in a little bit of a practice session just a few moments ago. I mean, what were some of the differences you noticed between these cars and the cars we saw in the earlier event?
Well, first, these cars are a lot more powerful than the other cars were, so going into these turns, there's going to be a little more difficult to handle as far as the power output goes, a lot higher speeds. Secondly, they were having a lot of issues running the high line of the racetrack, a couple of drivers that I noticed did, and they were skimming around the outside like we saw in the 360s. However, when they got to about a threshold where it looked like that the 360s could handle it, the 410s would snap and go off track. So I don't know if they're going to be able to run quite as high as they were the last time out with the 360s. We'll have to watch and see. The inside line, I should say, might work throughout the entire race, depending on how these cars are set up, as we're about to go green for our first heat.
The big debate we've had here as well during the intermission is whether or not these drivers will be able to go their 30 laps of the main event green flag racing without a caution. We managed to do it in the 360s, as coming around off the final corner, it will be Gary Peck leading us to the green, and we're underway in the first heat.
And it looks like that everyone's trying to get around the track, and Peck goes a little bit off, and there's contact. Peck is going to lose the lead as soon as the race starts. He's off the track on the back straightaway, has parked it, and has now gotten off track. Kevin Fry is now your leader, and that's kind of what I was expecting, was these cars are a lot more difficult to handle when it's an open setup. Kuhn is off the track as well on the back straight, but he gets it back on.
Dakota Kuhn was the car that I think Gary Peck made a little bit of contact with before he went off the back straightaway, as now the race lead is in the hands of Kevin Fry. Almost a second in hand back to Casey Miller. Kevin Fry coming into this series third in the point standings, only 10 points out. Would love to be starting at the very first position with great starting track position in the main event if he can close out the win in this heat.
Miller just went off track in turn 3 and 4, so he's trying to get back on the track. So these drivers having a little bit more struggle than we saw earlier in the night. The heat races go the same as the 360, so 6 laps, top 3 move on to the main event with a consolation race to get the last few spots into the main event. But Fry looks like he's been able to find a line in the middle of the racetrack. Hogue has found a line throughout the middle of the racetrack as well. It looks like these cars are more comfortable down there. And Seth, as this race ends and Kevin Fry takes the win, is this kind of what you were expecting to see out of these these 410s, I should say?
Absolutely, because of the fact, as I said before we went to our intermission, that these drivers now have the opportunity, with this being an open setup race, these drivers now get the chance to be able to adjust on what they want the car to feel like. And I'm trying to remember who it was that coined the phrase that loose is fast and on the edge of out of control. That sums up the way that you want your car to feel when it's on a dirt track. It doesn't matter what kind of a car you're driving, whether it's a truck, whether it's a sprint, whether it's a late model, whether it's a 358. You want that thing to have the back end kick out so that way you can make it through the center and carry as much speed as possible. The problem is, if you over adjust it too much, get it too loose, that's a lot of counter steering coming off the corner.
Absolutely. Power down is what these drivers are hoping for out of these turns. It's really what you need to get down these front straights here at Lernerville. This track has proven to be difficult for a lot of these 410 drivers in the first heat. Second heat is getting ready to go, as we're going to take 2 pace laps around this short dirt track. And it looks like that Brian Beach is going to be lining up on the front row along of Scott Muscard in the 44, as the other drivers, Huggins, Piles, and Karch, were all in the 360s. Beach and Muscard, I don't think were. I think Muscard was, though. I don't think Beach was.
Yeah, I think, actually Beach was in the event earlier as well. I think he finished last car on the lead lap in that one, if I recall correctly. Adam Huggins there in that 16 was one of the heat winners in the 360 sprint heat. So we'll see if he can pick up his second heat win of the evening. We also just want to give a quick shout out here to tonight's sponsor of these two events here at Lernerville, Rolling Thunder Gaming. Of course, FRN covers a lot of Rolling Thunder Gaming's leagues as well. We got a lot actually coming up here during the course of the week. We'll get to that in just a moment, but it's going to be Brian Beach and Scott Monksgaard bringing us down and getting us underway in our second heat race.
And going into turn one, it looks like these drivers are going to try and fan now. Beach gets away nice and tidy, but it's back here from second on to fifth. It's going to be really tight as they're going to go 3 wide through turn number 3 and 4. Looks like they're going to slide around, try to get going in the right direction. To the inside, the extreme inside goes one of those drivers, and that looks like it's going to be Beach going to the extreme inside. I believe that was Huggins that was pulling away. My relative was a little bit messed up there for a minute, but now we're back going away, and now all these drivers, you can put a blanket over them going through turn 1 and 2 as they're right next to each other on the razor's edge.
Huggins actually made the middle line work for a brief moment there, getting the race lead away from Brian Beach. Woo. Beach having some connection problems, and they were 3 wide. Look at Martin Karch way down in the grass there in 1 and 2 trying to make a pass, but he got up to second, fell back to fourth.
Piles is now in second place. What happened to Muscard? He's fallen a long ways back behind these drivers. Not in the picture. Beach is falling back a little bit, so now it's a battle between the leaders. Piles and Huggins battling it out, and now here comes Karch with a little bit of contact. It's going to send Piles on his side, but he gets it going again.
I'm not sure how that car got back on all 4 wheels, to be honest. I thought he was going up and over, but still managed just to keep driving it in the 3rd spot as Karch made a charge late, could not get it. It's going to be Adam Huggins who is going to pick up the heat win, so it's his second heat win of the night. He got a win in his heat in the 360s, gets a win here in the 410s, and with that victory, it now means that he will start on the outside of the front row in the main event.
Yeah, that's going to be crucial for him. As we've seen, the outside line on the starts is where you want to be at in most of these heat races. You get the outside line to work for you. You can get much better speed going down the front straightaways and the back straightaway. And Seth, we've seen 2 heat races go on through so far. We've got 2 left. What's some of your takeaways from the 2 heats that we've seen looking forward into these last 2?
As we expected, that inside line, or maybe more so the middle line, is viable now to try to be able to make some passes. We saw Adam Huggins, who won that last heat, made the pass on Brian Beach using the middle line, did not rim ride up on the top side. It all really depends on how these drivers have their car set up, because I saw as well, you alluded to how Scott Monksgaard dropped to the rear of the field. He was actually riding high, wide, and handsome through 3 and 4, but he couldn't get the power down on exits. So if you've got a good enough car and a good enough setup, no doubt that outside line's still going to be the preferred line, but certainly these drivers, with it being open setup, are going to be able to make adjustments to have that middle line carry maybe just as much speed and maybe a little bit better corner exit as well in an attempt to battle maybe eventually for the race win, as Michael Massey will line up on the pole for this one alongside of Matt Miller. Cody Olson, who took the win in the 360 sprint race just a few moments ago, he lines up 3rd with Timothy DeSchwartz and Terry Bauman in the rest of this heat. And you have to think, if you're Cody Olson, yes, he pulled off a 13th to 1st finishing result in the 360 race. I don't think he necessarily wants to rely on that again here. I think he's going to be all about starting track position, trying to win this heat.
Yeah, missed out on getting into the main event based on a finish in the heat races. So he had to run the consolation race, looking to not have to do that tonight, as it's going to be Massey Miller to get us underway. And the green flag is out. Look at the run that Massey on the outside line got, trying to get it in. I'm sorry, that was Miller on the outside line. He got a massive run going out of the turn. There's some contact. Miller's off the track. He's going off into turn 3. And now it's going to be a battle between Massey and Olson, and throw DeSchwartz into the mix.
There was no contact there. Miller just got really loose off of turn 2. As you see right there, Cody Olson does as well. I mean, as I said, loose is fast, but these drivers here tonight, they're already loose going into the corner. It gets even worse when they get off the exit.
Look at the way that Olson just throws it into turn number 1. He waits to turn into the last possible minute, trying to get all the power, all the speed that he can out of that car, as he's actually going to have a pretty good run going down the front straightaway. We're already halfway through this heat race. Looks like a little bit of a slide from Massey in front. Now this is Olson trying to make an advantage happen. You can tell the outside line is where he wants to run. The middle to inside is where Massey is. And around the outside goes Olson for the lead of the race.
Cody Olson has found something here at Lernerville that other drivers have just not been able to replicate. He has been able to get on the razor's edge of that top side. Imagine driving at about 120 miles per hour on the edge of the Grand Canyon. That's basically what he's doing on the back straightaway, but he's making it work here tonight, and he's en route to starting 4th for the main event as he will take the win here in this heat.
He will be starting, I believe, 3rd actually. This is heat number 3, so
Oh,
he'll
right,
be starting he'll be starting in the 3rd place position, which is, and this is crucial for him. He was able to do a 13th to 1st earlier in the night. He's going to be able to sit comfortably up at the front of the field, not having to put himself in that situation again.
And now the final drivers that will take to the track here. So it looks like I said it was going to be 18 drivers. Looks like 19 drivers will actually be in the field here for the 410 sprints. It'll be Brian Ordo alongside of Eric Keller. John Bragman, who finished in 2nd in our 360 race. He is going to roll off 3rd with Rick Gibson, who could very well have taken the checkered flag in the 360 race, but ran off the course out of turn 2 with about 5 laps to go. He'll be the last car here in this final heat.
Indeed, so one driver will be out of this heat, having to race in the coalition or consolation race, I should say, given that only 3 will transfer into the next event. Ordo, Keller, Bragman, and Gibson will be the 4 drivers starting in this event, and it's the last chance for some of these drivers before they have to go in. I think with the amount of cars that we have and the amount of cars that's going to be in the main event, that even if you have to run the B main, that you'll still be able to get in. But to your point, what we said about Olson will transfer over. None of these drivers want to be put into that situation where they have to run an extra race to get into the main.
Absolutely not. It's a difference between starting up inside of the top 10 and starting back in 12th through 20th pretty much in the rest of the field. And, you know, while we already have talked about the fact that Cody Olson's been able to find something there on that outside line, been able to make passes, not everybody else has that luxury, so it's been a lot more difficult for them to make passes, so you don't want to be back in traffic as the green is out. And man, just look at the wheel spin these drivers have to deal with at the initial start of this race. That was Eric Keller, who was going nowhere fast at the start-finish line.
No, it just bogged down on him and had to get the power down, try to get the throttle work to go, and it looks like there's contact between Keller and Gibson in the back for 3rd and 4th. There was a heavy contact into the wall going on the front straightaway, and that's allowed Bragman and Ordo to get away from these top 3, so they can basically run their race now, get around the track at their luxury. Although Keller, even though slapping the wall, seems like he's got some pace as he's running the middle to inside line, trying to get the power down early. He's actually catching up to Bragman ever so slightly. I believe that Rick Gibson has towed it away, so not a factor for the rest of the night.
Just pulled it into pit road, pulling it off track. So now we know the driver that's going to have to take part in that consolation race, and will be starting outside of the top 10 as Bragman trying to close up the gap here on Brian Ordo. Ordo trying to get his first heat win of the night. Didn't have the best of runs in the 360 race, just a lot of that due to him being mired back in traffic. But right now holds about 0.8 of a second between himself and the 4 car. 1 lap to go here in this heat.
Looks like it's going to be pretty clean for the number 71, going to easily, as I say that, wow, a big bobble down the back straightaway, but setting himself up for the Scandinavian flick into the final 2 turns, and he will get the win and launches out of the racetrack.
Now, I've seen a lot of drivers take some different ways of victory. That's got to be a first.
He went to Narnia with that launch. That was incredible. But he gets the win.
So it looks like, due to the fact that we did not have more than 20 drivers here for this race, they actually are going to skip the consolation race. All 19 drivers will be taking the green flag in the main event. So these drivers are now going to get that opportunity to go out there for 2 minutes of time to be able to have some warm-up, get used to this track again. It's now been watered down once more, and these drivers will prepare for their 30-lap main event here. let's kind of based off of what we saw with the 360s and what we've seen here with the heats and the 410s, let's pick a couple of guys out that we think probably are going to have to be contended with. I think obviously our number one would have to be Cody Olson, just on what he's been able to do. But who are some of the other guys that you've seen here that we basically have to keep an eye on?
Kevin Fry is going to be a one driver that we're going to have to keep an eye on. He showed speed throughout all of his heat races throughout the night, including in the 360s. Had a bit of an issue in the 360s, ended up starting a little bit back before he wanted to be, but definitely Olson and Fry. And I'm actually looking at Ronald Piles. He's shown that he's got speed, just have some unopportune moments happen for him, but I think Piles might be a force to be reckoned with for the top 5 of this race.
I think you got to look at Adam Huggins as well. He is 2 for 2 in winning his heats in both the 360s and the 410s. And I also wouldn't count out that bright pink 33 of Martin Karch as well. You know, a lot of drivers not really willing to go down there and try that inside line. I've seen him twice here tonight, once in the 360 heat and once here in the 410 heat, go down and literally be driving with his left sides in the grass and almost been able to make it work as well. I think he was second in his heat race here in the 410. So those are a couple of guys that might be some sleepers you have to keep an eye on here in the closing stages of this race.
As we're looking at the way it's going right now, as the warm-up has ended, Rick Gibson actually had the fastest time throughout the entire warm-up session. Almost a full 2/10 quicker than Martin Karch, who got second on the warm-up. But we're going to set them up and get ready for the main event tonight. A 30-lap shootout for these drivers. It's going to be intense, non-stop action, top to bottom for tonight's main event. As you saw in the 360 event, we went clean and green. Can we do it here for the 410s? Much quicker, much slicker. I'm expecting there's going to be a lot more in the way of lines to choose from for these drivers. So you never know. You might end up finding the fastest line might be where another car is.
Yeah, and this is like the flip. The script has been flipped as well here, because if you remember, Cody Olson and Kevin Fry started 13th and 15th in the main event for the 360s. Fry starts on the pole, Cody Olson right behind him. Why is that important? The two of them come into this race, Olson the points leader, Kevin Fry third, separated by 10 points. You know that both of them are eyeing that victory, eyeing maximum points here tonight. One trying to open up his points gap, the other one trying to close it.
Indeed, so points battle is going to be intense tonight, as it's intense every single week. But once these drivers were getting into the middle of the season, getting into the closing getting into the closing stages of the season, trying to get my nerves down, as this race is going to be intense. But getting into the closing stages of the season, the points are going to matter more than ever. And you know, a good run tonight, and a win possibly for some of these drivers mired up in the points will be expected of them to get to help them get their chances in for the race going on forward. But Kevin Fry is going to line up first, and second is going to be Huggins for this main event. Seth, this is going to be one of those times where we're going to be on the edge of our seats as commentators watching this main event.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot more intense, I think, than what we saw in the 360s, and that one had me on the edge of my seat and hitting octaves in my voice I wasn't planning on. So this one, I think, is going to put us maybe on a new level of excitement here. Just want to also mention real quick, as if I can get this before we take the green, Flatout Racing Network sponsoring a fundraiser here during the month of October. We're sporting the pink for breast cancer awareness. We've got a link down in the description if you'd like to head on over and donate for a great cause. We're going to run it for the entire month of October, but these guys now are getting ready to run for 30 laps here tonight at Lernerville.
And going into turn one, it looks like they're going to be 4 wide for third place on back, and they're going to make it work. These drivers not too keen to run side by side for much longer. There's a car off track. I believe that is Kevin Fry who's gone off track.
That was the pole sitter. Kevin Fry, Rick Gibson. Oh, Fry is upside down on his side. That's why the caution came out.
Wow, that was a good reason for the yellow to come out. So the first time tonight we've had a yellow flag on the racetrack. Yellow flag laps do not count towards the overall race. So we're going to set them up again and try it again. We got 2 laps into the race before the yellow flag came out. But man, Kevin Fry, who we were favored to have a good finish tonight, ends up on his side. And this is going to impact the points pretty significantly.
Definitely is. It was actually contact between the two drivers that were coming in battling for that points lead. Allen getting into Fry, sending him up the track into turn 3. Was hard to tell who the car was that made the initial contact with the 21 when he came back on the track, but Rick Gibson got a piece of it as well. I think maybe the other car that got him could have possibly been the 0-1 of Eric Keller.
And that was that's what happens when you get contact with these these cars. You gotta bear in mind they are open wheels cars, so when they get a little bit of contact on the wheels, it's going to send another car flipping over the top of it. These cars are very top heavy as well, with the giant wing on the roof, and he already had an off track, which kind of set him off balance getting back onto the racetrack. So, and you really can't see if you go off track because the way that it rises up, it's hard to see when you're merging back onto the racetrack. So that's another thing that these drivers have to consider if they do have an off-track moment, but we're going to set them up to go back to green. The pace truck will peel off this time by Beach, finds himself in the lead. That is wrong. That is the relative trying to catch up. It's actually going to be Cody Olson going to take us back to the green.
And he's going to choose the outside line. No surprise here on this restart with Adam Huggins to his inside. Brian Ordo and Brian Hogue there in row 2 as that high, wide, and handsome line works for Cody Olson on the long run. He's dropped back to second, though, as Huggins was able to take the advantage into 1 and 2.
I think that's a couple of cars, a lot of cars off track in turn 4, as I believe there was 3 or 4 of them that went off track, including Bragman, I believe was one of them, and Musgard, who's went off track. A lot of drivers going off track throughout the turn number 2. The 21, I believe, was one of them. And we are still green after all of that.
Oh, Brian Ordo!
And Ordo goes around in the middle of the field. He's going to slow it down.
Yikes.
Whoa, and we're back under yellow. Ordo trying to get it back going the right direction, but man, that was intense.
I believe the 21 of Kevin Fry actually was coming back out of pit road, but I'm not certain if this caution came out for the 44, and I think it was, who was it? It was Bragman, I believe, was the other one, the 4 over there in turn 4. If it came out maybe for the fact that the 71 of Ordo was starting to go around in front of the field. I'm not sure which it was that brought this yellow flag out.
It had to be something. There was a lot that was going on, so there's really no telling what actually brought out the yellow flag. However, I would imagine that Ordo spinning it in front of the field on the racing surface, coming almost to a dead stop, might have been what actually brought it out. But there was so much that happened in the span of, what did we run, 3 laps on that run, and man, we're going to set them up again and try it again, but holy cow, what a restart that was. 2, 3, 4, 5 wide at some parts of the track, and we've noticed, as we saw in the practice session before the event started, a lot of drivers having problems keeping it on the outside line, not being able to hold their line very well, going off track, causing things like that. We saw about 3 or 4 cars go off track in turn 3 that last time around. But man, Seth, it's getting down to this, what we thought was going to happen, where a lot of drivers are struggling with these faster cars on such a short, narrow track where no wall to really protect you from going off the track.
Yeah, and what's happening now is it's kind of changing the aspect of what I thought we were going to see, similar to the 360 race, where I thought we might see traffic at the tail end of the field come into play. With all these cautions, everybody's lined back up, so we're all still in close proximity. That's the issue drivers are having to deal with traffic-wise.
Indeed so, as we're back to green flag racing. There's a 2 and 3 wide racing for a
Brian
second.
Hogue, how in the world did he not spin, or Martin Karch?
There's a car off track back there. I think that's Eric Keller that's went off the track that time. Or that might be Bragman that's gone off the track. I can't really tell which one it was.
Gary Peck.
Gary Peck went off track. So that's happened to him, and another driver goes off track in turn 3, and the yellow comes back out. That one, I believe, was Orto.
It was Ordo and Brian Hogue, who I believe were battling around the 3rd or 4th position at the time. Not sure if anybody else got caught up in this or not, as Brian Hogue's actually going back around trying, I don't know if he's trying to get his spot back or not. I'm not certain if he's allowed to do that. It all depends on the timing of when the caution came out, I guess.
Might be, I don't know. We're going to have to find out what's happening. The relative is trying to catch up. We really don't know who's running where at the moment. We're going to find out. I think Olsen is definitely going to be the leader of the race. But, man, again, we're under the yellow flag. Off tracks happening in turn 3 and 4, I believe, is what's going to put us under the yellow flag this time around. Pace truck is going to take these drivers around for a couple of laps, and we'll set them up and try it again. But Seth, do you think that now that you've seen the way that the race is going to go, that some of these drivers might want to race a little bit slower? I know that you shouldn't say that to a race car driver. Never tell them to go slow. But given the fact that some of these drivers, they are having so much trouble keeping it on the racetrack when they go on the outside line, trying to get that run going out of the turns, it might almost be worth backing it off a little bit, trying to see if you can run an alternative line so you don't get off track so much, as turn 3 and 4 specifically have been the trouble spots so far.
Well, I understand what you're saying, but I think the easy answer to that question is no, they're not going to be backing down, and I'll tell you why. There's a number up there, 30. Only 30 laps in this race. And yes, I know that the caution laps don't count, but even so, 30 green flag laps. It doesn't take long for those laps to get ticked away. So if you're out there fighting for every position possible, you have to treat these restarts like it's a one-lap shootout, I think.
Absolutely, with the amount of times they go, and they're going to line up single file this time rather than double file to see if they can get better restarts going. And now they're going back as Olson is going to pull away. Looks like that Karch, Miller, and Kuhn are going to be battling for that second place position. Kuhn kind of falling back, and now with the single file restart, oh, the 33 slow. I don't know what's happened to the 33, but he's falling way down the order. That was Karch. He's off the track on the back straightaway. The green flag is still out on racetrack at the moment, but he's heading off track. So we're still racing pretty hard and intense, but looks like that we're going around pretty much okay with that single file restart.
Yeah, way off track when Martin Karch. Just want to update everybody as well, in case you couldn't have told when we went back and looked at the replay what happened over in 3 and 4, that for this last caution, the car that was up and over and left on its side was the 98 of Matt Miller. He has taken his car back to the garage area, will not finish out this race as Cody Olson continues to show the way. The best battle right now is going on between Ronald Piles and Brian Hogue. A lot of other company behind them as well. That's fourth place on back.
Yeah, that's a hornet's nest of cars back there. 3 wide between Hogue, Piles, and it looks like Massey's.
Yes, Michael Massey, I think, just went around off the nose. I think that might have been the possibly the John Braglandman machine. It was off of turn 4.
I think that was maybe Huggins, as he's retired
the
car.
Yes, you're right. It was Huggins. Eric Keller is in trouble as well, as he's facing into the inside wall in the front stretch.
So that opens up another can of worms. That was a slow spin, though. Nothing really significant happened to Michael Massey. He's able to keep it going. And I think he crossed the line while sideways, so he might get credited for whatever spot he was in when he crossed the line. We'll have to find out and see where he lines up. Looks like he's going to be mired back at the 15th position at the current moment. So we've got a couple cars stopped trying to get back around the pace truck. Some of these drivers are, as Olson has been someone who said, yeah, this is fine. I'm okay with this as long as no one challenges for the lead. And the 033 is the only one that's been close to him has been Miller. But on the last restart, Olson was able to pull away from Miller and got to a pretty big advantage. So it doesn't look like anything's really got anything for Olson at the moment.
Yeah, but I'm going to just throw a little bit of water on that campfire of a conspiracy based on the fact that, let's remember, Dakota Kuhn was really fast during practice in the 360 sprints. He did not get to race in the 360 main event due to connection issues. Right now, that 095 is scored in the 3rd position, so we're yet to really see the speed he can bring here to Lernerville. You mentioned the fact that Casey Miller's in 2nd place, but I think right now, if you're Cody Olson, you got to be worried about Kuhn back there in 3rd place.
Indeed, so as Kuhn might have something for everyone as the green flag comes back out. There's very short caution periods at this racetrack. Miller going to send it down to the inside, trying to make the inside line work. Not quite, as it looks like the Olson's going to have the overall run out of the turn number 2. Looks like battle for the 4th place position between Piles. That's 5th, I should say, between Piles and Hogue, as the 4th place position driver of DeSwart goes way up the track trying to run that outside line. We're still under green. Battle going on. I believe there's a slow car. Beach kind of looped it around just a little bit. Was able to get it back going the right direction. And looks like battle's going on throughout the rest of the racetrack. You got Keller, Peck, Orto. As I believe Keller just made contact with the wall in the front straight away. There's a car going sideways.
That's Peck in the 88 right in front of Orto. Keeps it straight.
Well, he made the fantastic save. during that exchange, but it looks like that up at the front, it's all Olson. And to your point, we haven't seen this yet so far this race. He's catching the tail end of the field. So what are we going to see when we see a fast driver catch slower traffic?
Yeah, that's going to be interesting. I mean, we've already talked about the fact it seems nobody else can really run the line that Cody Olson has run all night long. Maybe that will aid him in getting around this slower traffic. We're going to have to wait and see. Adam Huggins has actually gotten back into the server, but he is currently scored 6 laps down. Martin Karch in the 33 is now back on pit road. He was a lap down prior. He's now -2, as we've got 15 cars currently running on the lead lap. And as we go on board here, looking from what Cody Olson can see, there's the traffic. Oh, it's spinning right in front of him. Caution's going to come out.
I'm not sure who that was, but
Terry
that was
Bauman, I think, in the 40.
So that was a spin that could have taken out the leader, but the yellow flag was called for it. Man, that was a solo car spin, though, so no one else was involved, no damage done. We'll line them up one more time and try it again as the pace truck rockets by these leaders.
Yeah, there was oncoming traffic, and boy, Terry Bauman had his hands full. He nearly wrecked it out of turn 2, and then he did spin it around over in turn 4. We'll go back and then look at the incident over here in turn 2. I think there was contact between Bauman and Massey right there. Maybe not contact. Maybe it was just Bauman trying to stay off the 45. Then it brings it down here into 3 and 4. The inside of Peck loops that car around, and as we saw right there, going around on the outside, that was the race leader, Cody Olson, who could have very well been caught up in that.
Yeah, and a huge lead would have been wiped away if that had happened, but was able to get around. And that's the benefit of running the high line. You can kind of see what's happening in front of you and make a decision on whether or not you want to hit the brakes or not. So everything is okay for the leader of the race as we're going to stack them up again. Pace truck lights are already out, as we're going to set them up again for the rest of the race. We're on lap 20 of 30. Your leader is Cody Olson. He's got Casey Miller and Dakota Kuhn right behind him, running in second and third respectively, and then back to round out the top 5. It's going to be Ronald Piles and Timothy DeSwart, who is kind of hoping that they can maybe try to have a last-minute charge and maybe get themselves into the top 3s. They're going to run the outside line as we get underway.
Green flag back in the air with 10 laps to go. We should mention as well, these cars so sensitive, they get involved in a wreck, they're probably done for the night. Oh, we got a caution out. That's Kevin Fry in the 21. He's up and over and almost outside of the track there. Looks like he and Terry Bauman got together.
Oh!
He's trying to get into the throttle to get that thing turned back around, but no, has to teleport to pit road, and that is 3rd in the points that was involved in a late one here.
Karch also came in and made some contact with Bauman, I believe that he made contact with. So there was a lot of that happened in turn 1, but yeah, the flipping Fry going into turn number 1, and you got to feel for him. He had promise of a strong day, and then it fell apart earlier in the race, and this is just the latest thing that's happened to that 21 car.
Oh, wow, there you see the shot. Bauman sliding into Kevin Fry. That's what flipped him over onto his side. I believe it was the 18 getting up and into the outside wall there on the front straightaway that kind of checked everybody up and led to that wreck. I was going to bring up the fact that these drivers do have one fast repair at their disposal here tonight should they need it. We have had a couple of drivers that have come down and used that fast repair, so they basically now have what they have for the remainder of this race. Those drivers would include the 44 of Scott Monksgaard, the 18 of Brian Beach, the 71 of Brian Ordo, the 01 of Eric Keller, and the 40 of Terry Bauman.
So they will be able to have their car, like you said, a bit more repaired than it was. The pace truck lights will be out this time around. We're going to set them up one more time again. This time we'll be going to green on lap 22 of 30. It's getting down to the end of the race. And if we have a long green flag run, how much of a run do you think that Miller and Kuhn have if they want to get up to Olson, who seems that he has dominated from the very outset of the race thus far tonight? I said it earlier and I'll say it again, I don't think anyone has anything for this 6 car.
No, I agree with you. You see him dive it down there to the bottom to take away any opportunity to get a run on him. Then right back up to the top. But look at Miller. Drives it in deep there through 1 and 2, but could not get the power down off the second corner.
Had the lead for a moment, lost the lead coming out of turn number 2. Not enough power, not enough grip down there on the inside line still. And on the outside line, Kuhn's going to try and take the position away. Around the outside, Kuhn goes through for second place. He's going to have the run coming out at turn number 3, 4. Looks like he's going to bring Piles with him.
So now Piles will move into a podium spot, third place, running right directly in the tire tracks of Dakota Kuhn. Now it's going to be Miller following all the way back to that fourth position as we got some battling back here. That is Gary Peck, Eric Keller, Michael Massey. Oh, Brian Ordo, Kurt Kerr pops it down there. He gets hit from behind by Massey. They all keep it straight for the moment.
A lot of intense racing back here.
Somebody's blown up, I think, up ahead here. I thought I saw some gray smoke. Maybe not. Maybe it was just the way the light is hitting it. But I thought someone had blown up inside of the top 10.
Might just be some dirt kick up. I saw it too, but it looks like it's just some kick up from inside of turn number 2 when they get down on the grass. It's a big battle going on down there, and a lot of drivers are using up every bit of the track they can. I do see where it's smoking a little bit though, and that's coming off of this wart. I think it's just the line he's running, getting the power down a little bit and just full throttling through there. Olson with a 3.5 second advantage now out in front as there's winding down. There's only going to be 2.5 laps to go at this stage in the race. I don't think Kuhn's going to have enough time, although Olson's got some lap traffic he has to deal with.
Yeah, but is he going to, even with this lap traffic, lose nearly 4 seconds? As caution is out, the yellow flag is going to wave with 2 laps to go. I believe Gary Peck the reason for this yellow over in turns 1 and 2. And now the question is, I don't know if this league does green-white checkers or not. Does this race possibly have a green-white checker finish?
Yes, this is a green-white checker finish. We're going to go to lap 31 now. I believe there's only 1 attempt at a green-white checker in this series, so they only get 1 of these. After that, it's either the next flag ends the race, so it's either going to be a caution flag or the checkered flag to finish out this race tonight.
Well, I mean, remember the dive bomb move we saw Casey Miller put on Cody Olson there on that last restart. You almost wonder oh wow, 88 car was somewhat slow there on the front straightaway and then just got shot up the track. I think that was Kevin Fry that got into him, but I mean, if you're Dakota Kuhn, if you're Ronald Piles, we saw both of them very comfortable up on that top side on that last run. Do they try and make that kind of a desperation move down into turns 1 and 2 on this restart lap?
You almost think that it's expected the way that the race has gone for Olson. He's been able to put his car where he needs to in order to get the maximum amount of speed around this racetrack. And if I'm Kuhn, it's the last opportunity you have. You bet that I'm going to put myself down as low as I can, run it up. If there's contact between myself and Olson, then that's just racing as far as I'm concerned with Kuhn.
Yeah, Kuhn is making his first start of the season. Olson comes in the points leader, so kind of no contest on who has the most to lose and who has the most to gain as we're getting ready to go green. Green, white checker to finish this thing out here tonight. Kuhn tried that inside line there, could not get the power down as Olson is gone.
Olson again with a great restart. Kuhn running that extreme outside line, gets a little bit offset. Now Piles is going to try to have a run at him going through these turn 3 and 4. Olson slowed down a bit though. Kuhn is catching him. White flag in the air. This is going to end the race. Next flag ends it. Olson on the outside line rings it around. I don't think that Kuhn has anything, as it's going to be Olson from start to finish. He goes coast to coast with a win.
Cody Olson will sweep the weekend here at Lernerville, winning in the 360s earlier on tonight, the 410s just now. More of a dominating performance here in this race than it was earlier on, since he had to work his way from mid-pack in that one, but what a job there by Cody Olson. I think a big thing that really attributed to the fact of him winning this race, he was really good in mixing up those restarts, throwing everybody else behind him off guard of when he was going to accelerate.
Indeed, so he would go in some of the in the middle of the turn, he would go at the end of the turn, he would wait till he was about on the front stretch before he would go, so you never really knew when he was going to take the green flag, as it was in control in his hands as far as how the race went. But yeah, that is an attribute to how he was able to get the jumps. His car was just faster all night, plain and simple. He was able to run a line that no one else was able to run consistently, and he opened up almost an entire 4-second lead over Kuhn at some points in this race. So Olson with clearly the fastest car tonight, and to show for it, gets a first place, a double first place tonight for this driver.
You know, we always talk about this when we come to a short track, how it's always track position over anything else. And if you look up here, a lot of these drivers that finished up inside the top 5, even as far down as maybe the top 8, were drivers that spent that time all race long up in those positions. Dakota Kuhn in second, Ronald Piles in third. Piles came into this race ninth in the standings. I think he's way too far back with only 4 races remaining to battle for the championship, but trying to finish out the season as best he can. Casey Miller with a solid top 5 there in fourth, and Timothy DeSchwart, who was the only driver, I think, all race long that was committed to the inside line here at Lernerville. He's going to reap the benefits, at least, of a top 5 finish.
He will do that. He was able to make the inside line work a lot better than I thought he would. He wasn't able to get the power down to get the run down the straightaways, which would have helped him if he was trying to win the race. However, he was able to keep pace on the inside line, which is something that only him and a couple other drivers running at the back were able to do around their drivers. But again, you said track position was the thing that mattered the most tonight, and I agree with you. It was all about track position. As Kuhn was able to get second. I believe he started in the 4th or 3rd place position, but is able to get up to 2nd place. And a lot of these drivers had off tracks, which is another factor that played into tonight's outcome. Is some of the front runners had off track moments. The leader of the race at one point had an off track and caused Olson to get the lead, and he never looked back ever since then.
Let's see if we can get some interviews with some of our top 3 finishers, and let's kick things off with Ronald Piles, who gets his first podium podium finish of the night, I should say, finishing 3rd place in this one.
User was moved to your channel.
Hey, Ronald, it's Anthony and Seth up here in the Flatout Racing Network studios. You got us?
Yes, sir. I got a copy. How you doing tonight?
Oh, we're doing great, but man, you know, you ran 3rd place for pretty much the second half of this race. Looked like the best battle was going on between you and that 095 of Dakota Kuhn. Both of you seem to be running the same identical line as well. What little more did you need? Is there a place that you could have maybe been able to make a pass them, or were you guys just a little too equal?
Honestly, I've found a couple places that I had better ground. I just need him to make a mistake to give me an opportunity, and unfortunately, the mistakes he was making wasn't allowing me to get the room for, or the where the grip was for me to get around him. Those couple of times seemed like he was kind of anywhere I'd try to go. But I don't know if he was just trying something different or was watching what I was doing. I've got implementations for iRacing, take these mirrors out of these dirt cars, to be honest. But from 10th to 3rd, from 10th to the back up to 3rd, I'll take it tonight here. Great run for us here for Hardy Sports, getting the 68 up front. Unfortunately, a couple teammates there, Gibson and Peck, not doing as well, but I'll take this getting back up here. I've had a couple of slow nights here in the 410.
You had a fantastic run that got you up into this 3rd place position, but the track seemed like it was more or less as tough of a battle as racing other drivers on the racetrack tonight. How tough was the track tonight, given the conditions that we were running in? Also, that outside line, we saw a number of drivers go off track. Was there any moment that you thought that you might have been one of those drivers?
Not really. I got to looking at. I was around the bottom real early on. I was making some ground up there. And then the Zwart got by me and sent me back to 4th. And I thought, I got to find something. So I thought, okay, we're on the top. And I started reeling him in. I thought, okay, I see you, Zwart. I'm coming. Hang on, Tim.
Well, Ronald, obviously, you know, former winner this season. You bring it home 3rd place here tonight at a very tough and technical track at Lernerville. Is there anybody that you'd like to shout out here tonight?
Well, first and foremost, I like Lernerville. My hotkey setup for my wing forward button, so you see my wing move a little bit. But a lot of hands go together on this. Hardy Sports first and foremost, getting together and putting the setup together, getting the cars out here and competing each and every week. iRacing iFlag, got to thank them as well. Spotter signals from that box, they help out. If you don't have an iRacing iFlag, get over to iRacingIFlag.com, pick that up. BladeNode.com, simple web solutions powered by nerds. They're a great backer here, not only of Hardy Sports, but Harm Sports as well, and myself, as well as a local track sponsor back home. And trying to see if I'm missing anybody. There's a couple on the wing there. Vicious Graphics, Gibson putting this car together for me. It was a fantastic job over there. But I think that covers the most part of them. I also want to thank you guys for doing the broadcast, and Michael Massey for putting this on, and I forget who it was that put this on, paid you guys for this, but I want to thank them as well for making it possible for me to even thank all my sponsors on this wonderful network you guys are putting this broadcast out on.
That's Ronald Piles. He brings it home 3rd place here tonight in the 410 sprints. Congrats on a great run. Go enjoy your good, consistent finish here, and we look forward to seeing what you do here for the remainder of the season.
All right, I look forward to seeing you guys again too.
User was moved out of your
And
channel.
let's go get our second place finisher, Dakota Kuhn.
User was moved to your channel.
Hey, Dakota, it's Anthony and Seth up here in the Flatout Racing Network studios. You got us?
Yeah, I got you.
Well, man, I mean, obviously, the hardship of connection problems, we didn't get to see you in the 360 sprint race earlier on tonight, but man, you put on a heck of a show here in the 410s. We were kind of watching you slowly, methodically work your way up there in through the top 5, up into that second position. We were wondering if maybe, just maybe, that 6 of Cody Olson was going to have some company on that final restart. What was there that you needed a little bit more of to be able to get to his back bumper and challenge there on that last green-white checkered?
Just need a little bit more stick. Something happened there, and I just felt like I kind of unwound. And right before the last caution, I felt like I was a little bit better. I could stick through the middle a little bit better, but just kind of faded away there at the end. And honestly, if I was going to catch him, it was just going to be him screwing up or getting over the curb.
We saw an intense battle tonight all over the racetrack. A lot of drivers going side by side, a lot of close contact action. But you were kind of running your own race almost from the third place position and then up to the second place position. Did you find that the battling on the racetrack was just as intense as it looked for us up in the broadcast booth? And was the track tough to tame tonight?
Yeah, I mean, anytime you're racing with anybody, it doesn't matter who it's with. It's going to be tough. And yeah, the track got real slick. And I mean, you always got to race the racetrack to begin with. I mean, it's a part of it. You just kind of got to run your own race. I'm a fan of the slick stuff, so I like it. It was fun for me, so I'll take that.
Well, Dakota, obviously a great run for you here tonight. Second place performance. We would have loved to have seen what you could have done over there in the 360s as well, but still a runner-up finish here in the 410s. A very strong performance for you. I don't think you fell outside of the top 5 all night long. We're now going to turn the microphone over and let's do some shout-outs.
Yeah, 360 race kind of sucks. Shit happens. It is what it is. Just got to thank the guys that put the race on, you guys for doing this, and then just want to say congrats to Cody on the win. We used to be on a team together, and it's fun to race with him a little bit. I mean, we kind of had a rough spell there where we try to take each other out, it seems like, from time to time. So it was just fun to kind of race, aside from doing some real racing stuff that I've been doing. Haven't been time to sim race. So just thanks to everybody for doing this.
That's Dakota Kuhn. He brings it home second place here tonight in the 410 sprints race at Lernerville. Congrats on a great run and good luck on the remainder of the season.
Yeah, thank you.
And let's now go down
User
to
was
Victory
moved out of
Lane
your
for a
channel.
second time. We get to talk with Cody Olson as he sweeps it here tonight at Lernerville.
User was moved to your channel.
Hey, Cody, it's Anthony and Seth up here again, the Flatout Racing Network studios. You got us?
Yes, sir.
Well, man, you did it. You sweeped here tonight at Lernerville. You were able to move from 13th to 1st in the 360 race, the fixed setup, but here got a lot better starting track position. You were in an open setup, able to have it customized to your liking. What were like some of the differences that you felt in the car here as opposed to what you were feeling over in the 360 cars?
Well, I could set the wing a lot deeper and make the car a lot tighter, and then get it a little closer to the ground, so it really hook up, and you can change tire pressures so that way the tire reacts a little better when you're running through the slick and stuff like that. So
You definitely saw a noticeable difference between the 360 and the 410 race. One notable thing is that it seemed like you were much more comfortable running the outside line as you were able to pull out a pretty big advantage. But this is huge for you going into the next time that we race here because you are now extending your points lead out. What are you looking forward for the rest of the season going forward? Can you extend your points lead more? Do you think that someone might come up and challenge you?
well, I mean, I'm always up for a challenge. I mean, I'd rather lose by 2 points than win by 100, because those are the things that you remember in the end. So, I mean, I hope somebody does, but honestly, I'm just looking to finish the races. I told myself at the beginning of this season, that I just want to finish every single race and at least finish within the top 5. That was kind of my goal, is at least get a top 5 every night, and I should be somewhat of a contender. I really wasn't expecting to even come out here and win races.
Well, man, I mean, you got 2 of them here tonight, the 360 and the 410 sweep. Dominating performance by here tonight as well. I don't think there was another single driver in the field that was able to run the line that you were able to run consistently with that amount of speed. A very strong performance for you here tonight in both events. And for one final time, Cody, we're going to turn the microphone over and let's do some shout outs.
Definitely a shout out to I think there was a gentleman that paid to have this put on. I can't remember his name, but yeah, shout out to definitely him for making this happen, and you guys for doing the broadcast, and Michael, for running the league and putting this on every week, and then obviously all my guys at ADM and all of our sponsors, Durco Racing Gear, Durco Media House, 34 Raceway, Toro Media, WFO Race Engines, FERN, and Ram Designs.
Well, Cody Olson doubles down here tonight at Lernerville, sweeping the weekend here this evening with the sprint races, the 360 and the 410. Congrats on your victories, Cody. Go enjoy them, and we look forward to seeing what you do for the remainder of the season in both series.
Yep, thank you, gentlemen. Thanks for having me.
User was moved out
And
of
that
your
will
channel.
conclude our coverage here tonight from Lernerville. And Anthony, kind of like what we expected, I think you touched on it at the very start of this broadcast when we were comparing the two different types of sprint cars. Two different races, two entirely different races in terms of the way that the drivers approach not only the way their race cars handled, but the track conditions as well.
Oh yeah, in the first race, in the 360 race, you were able to see drivers run the outside line with little to no issue. A little bit more base setup for these drivers. The cars were a tad slower, so there was a little bit more in the sense of control where you knew what your car can do from the onset, and you didn't really have the variable of did I mess something up in the setup or not. And when you get to the 410s, it's a much more powerful car. You could have an open setup, so your setup could have been anything that you wanted it to be. And it was just a mixed bag of different setups that we saw. Some could run the low line, some could run the middle line, some could run the high line. But we saw a lot more drivers try to run the outside line and their car slide more than they thought it would and then go off the track, which we saw more off tracks that we saw in the 410 race that we did in the 360 race. We also saw more cautions as 360 race didn't have any. 410 had a caution. I think they had up to 6 or 7 by the end of the night, and including a green white checker, which really stacked things up.
You have to wonder about Cody Olson as well. Not only does he sweep here tonight, but he could very well be heading into the next race of the respective series, either as the points leader or tied for the points lead. He's obviously got the points lead over in the 410s, going to extend that one heading into next week. But he came into the 360 limited series 4 points behind Clifford Driscoll. Driscoll finished in third. Olson finished with the win. So I'm not sure, based off of if there's any bonus points or anything, if Driscoll's still going to have a 1 point advantage, if Olson's taking the lead, if they're going to be tied. But, Olson may be looking for a sweep here for both series as well with 4 races remaining.
Yeah, you never know. I mean, the way that Olson was driving tonight, it's very possible. He showed that he was well more than capable to even come back from the middle of the field in the main race in the 360s. Powered his way up through, got to the win of the race, and then when he had good starting position in the 410s, he was able to put his car where he needed to put it and was able to just drive away. So he has come through different types of races tonight, and he is a favorite, I feel, going into these next few races, that he could be a dominant force.
Well, he will look to carry that momentum into next week as the ASRA sprints will be at the dirt track at Charlotte. And then FRN is back to have the call on November the 1st here, as we'll be calling the action in both the 360 and 410 sprints at Lanier Dirt. So that should be a good one. There's a lot of stuff coming up here this week, actually, for Flatout Racing Network. Very busy week here. Tomorrow night, RTG Bare Bones Racing Series. They're going to be taking to Texas Motor Speedway. I'll be having the call there. Anthony, you're going to be joining Sam over with Slipstream F1 tomorrow night as well. They're starting to get closer to the end of their season. Tuesday, we've got G-Force. They're going to be at Martinsville, as I believe that is their penultimate race of the season. They're close to crowning a champion there. RTG is going to have their Winston Cup Series at Phoenix in the desert. Wednesday night is the RTG Aero 88 Series. They're going to be at the RTG Motor Speedway. SARG, their Super Speedway Series, will be at Michigan. And then on Thursday night, we've got the RTG Talladega Challenge. They are closing in on the end of their regular season. Friday night, we've got the Rapid Fire Pizza National Series at Texas. Soda Guys Cup Series on Saturday at Texas as well. And Flatout Racing Network will have the call for the FTF Grand National Series at North Wilkesboro. No doubt about it, a very busy week here at the Flatout Racing Network. Going to be a wild week of racing of all different types. But Anthony, we're done here tonight with the sprint racing at this dirt track of Lernerville. Appreciate you joining me for this one here tonight.
It was fun. I like dirt track racing. It was a pleasure to come onto the call for the first time that we did the sprint series on FRN. I think it was about a month ago now that we did this, and I absolutely had a blast with Sam. And then they got the call to come and do this one, and I was like, "Hey, dirt track racing! I love it." So I'm very happy that I got to do it with you, because every time that we do a commentary together, it just, I don't know, it feels nostalgic. It goes back to like the early 2010s when you and I were just starting out on this platform.
Yeah, it really does. We appreciate everybody that tuned in here this evening. Hope you guys enjoyed the coverage we brought to you. Hope you guys enjoy the rest of your Sunday night. And also a big thank you as well to tonight's sponsor, RTG Rolling Thunder Gaming, for sponsoring tonight's two events here at Lernerville. But for Anthony McCurry, I'm Seth Cole. Thanks for tuning in here tonight to another broadcast brought to you courtesy of the Flatout Racing Network.